Welcome to WoTTalk number 4, or Wheel of Time Talk number 4. I apologize for missing last week. I was stuck in the Denver airport, which was no fun. I fly a lot, and I do not like airports. I'm a germaphobe, and they're just my worst nightmare. So in the last episode, I asked you to tell me who your least favorite character was, and almost none of those comments were spoiler free. But what I would like to do here for the people who don't want to encounter spoilers and, stick around for the pre-spoiler section is to just throw up a graph that just shows the results. That way you can see who the most and least hated, well, the most hated characters are by the audience, at least here at WoTTalk. And I'll put that up on the screen now. And if you look, there is something kind of interesting here. Almost entirely female, which I find to be strange, seeing as it's roughly I would say like 60-40 split in terms of the amount of men and women in the Wheel of Time. And I'd love for you guys to speculate why you think this is in the comments down below. Try to keep it spoiler free, because I would like this to be kind of included in the spoiler free section in next week's video. But there's only two men on this entire list, and that's David Hanlon and Gawain, which I understand why they're here. But I just think it's interesting that almost entirely female. Granted, a lot of them are just kind of one-off votes, but everyone that has high votes, like Elida or Nynaeve or Savannah, they're all female. And I'd like to know what you speculate why, because I have my own theories, but I'll keep that for next week. Now, moving on into the spoiler-free questions. What we're going to be talking about a lot today is characters that people hated. Obviously, that's a lot spoiler-filled, but right now we're going to jump on into the spoiler-free section. And well, okay, a couple of these spoiler-free comments are very early in the series spoilers, so I hope that's okay with people. None of it is beyond book 1, and none of it's even like the ending of book 1. It's just like character stuff for the beginning of book 1, and I hope that doesn't bother anybody that I'm including this in spoiler-free. It's just you really can't have almost any comments at all if you exclude stuff that even is just like basic character spoilers in the first book. And I don't want to do that. So we're going to have those in the spoiler-free section from here on out. I just want to make that clear. Mainly because there's a couple comments, including one from Bedtime Bookworm again, how you doing, that I really wanted to address as we go forward here. So moving on in, we have one from Michael Dowling. Howdy, Daniel. Howdy, Michael. Longtime viewer, first-time commenter. Feel free to comment anytime. One of the most important parts of the Wheel of Time for me is the humor. The world and the story are both so dark, agreed, and the stakes are so high, agreed, that the humor will need to be there for the show to balance out the series. I really agree. This is something I think we've touched on briefly before, but humor in Wheel of Time is so crucial. It's something that really helps set the tone for this entire world. For those of you who finished the series, Matt's boot talk is one of my favorite moments that happens, period. And it's so funny. There's a lot of stuff like that. And some people are going to flip out when I say this. There needs to be some of that Marvel humor in Wheel of Time. It's a dark world, and they need to keep that. But they need those moments where you can just laugh at a good character-driven humor moment, which is what Marvel does a lot in their movies, character-driven humor. And I find that to be very similar to the humor that we see in Wheel of Time. Obviously, it's a very different tone in terms of the humor, but it's always about the character. And that's something Marvel, especially recently, and I think we're in phase 3 now, has done extraordinarily well, except for maybe in Doctor Strange. I didn't love that movie. Now moving on to David Sandlin. Definitely should have been a wolf sister who could have wielded the one power. She could have been one bad mofo. If you think about it, maybe I'll write a fan fiction about it. Could have definitely been a cool story Wove wrote about. I think he misspelled. Oh, sorry, Wove about? I don't know. Oh, Wheel of Time, Wove. I got what you're doing. This is interesting. I just wanted to ask people, maybe I'm misremembering or maybe I have the wrong impression here, but I just want to ask you guys, do you think someone in the Wheel of Time could have multiple abilities like that? Be a wolf brother who could channel, or be a sister who could also be a wolf brother? I'd like to know what your thoughts on are that. Is there a constriction in any way? Do you think the pattern would give someone that? Now, I know there's people who are Talviran and something else. I mean, literally our main trio. But I just think it's a neat idea that there could be a Talviran wolf sister, Aes Sedai, who has a luck factor. Like, it'd be the most broken character of all time. But that would be a neat little concept. Early in the video, you mentioned it would make sense for them to be the same skin color. Don't like the word race. I wonder why you don't like the word race. Because they're in the same village. And regarding the time, I disagree, because it's after a futuristic age where diverse people are already well settled in with other people of different colors. Therefore, it would be logical to assume that villages, countries, continents would be places of varying skin tones, unless I'm missing something. Just my thoughts. I think that's a really good point in terms of the race thing. It's just the only thing going against it is the fact that Wheel of Time makes specific efforts to show race is still thoroughly divided among these lines, which is certainly a strange thing to be a factor there. You're right. Logically, everything should be so bred to the point where there isn't these defined black Asian race lines, but they still do exist in the Wheel of Time. Someone replied to this with a comment basically saying it's been so long since these places were split that kind of like de facto, races have been established in new places, just depending on what the majority was. I disagree with that, though, because let's say, like, once you have a mixed person, they can't go back to being a pale redhead, really, again. That just doesn't work out. So, like, why would the Aiel all be redheads, which is a recessive gene? And you could say, well, maybe redhead isn't a recessive gene in the Wheel of Time, but it's explicitly stated that this is like a futuristic version of our world that had a collapse. And in our world, redhead is a recessive gene. I would know. I have that recessive gene in my blood. So that's just a logical, probably incongruity, maybe, in the Wheel of Time. But it'd be interesting to see what you guys can throw back at me there. Try and prove me wrong. What am I missing there? Because in terms of genes, there should be certain things that if you're so diverse at a certain point, they die out. It's an unfortunate thing, and no, redheads are not actually dying out. That's a false thing. There's still redheads being born today. But just a thought, cool idea. And then we have Brian Wagner. Wolves are a bit of a paradoxical animal. They somehow manage to represent a solitary hunter, a raging monster, and a group of coordinated warriors all at the same time. A fact that I believe is not lost on Robert Jordan, as Perrin manages to represent, or is believed by others to represent, all these aspects at various times in the series. And I really like this comment because it covers the growth of Perrin in kind of an abstract, non-spoilery way, and I think it just kind of builds mystery about this guy, because I think Perrin grows fantastically, and seeing his moments of rage and hurt and anger helps shape who he becomes is one of my favorite aspects of reading for him. So hopefully that wasn't considered a spoiler for you guys, but yeah, Perrin goes through different stages. I actually disagree with some of the stages you put here, but I still think it does kind of fit into the image of a wolf. I might come back and get more into that in the spoiler section, but it's a cool idea that if I was just starting the series, would tantalize me into wanting to read more about Perrin. It would be great if you offered this as a podcast as well, so that we could listen during driving. That's a whole other medium I'd have to set up that I'm not sure how to do. I will look into it for you guys. The problem is that I'm just waiting for YouTube to put out a podcast kind of section. I know if you put on YouTube Red, you can turn off your screen, which I think doesn't do the video data anymore, and you just get the sound while you're doing that. I could be mistaken. Don't quote me on that. But I'll look into maybe putting this on SoundCloud or something. I'm not entirely sure. But to be perfectly candid with you, from a business perspective, that doesn't make as much sense for me, because I'm pulling people away from watching ads and stuff on YouTube, which I get the revenue from that, which it's becoming substantial enough for me that it's actually something I'm using to subsidize helping the channel grow and all these things. So what I might do, and if there's backlash from me saying this, people commenting, no, don't do that, I might make it a Patreon thing where if you throw in $1 a month, which is nothing, I will go ahead and put audio-only versions of WoTTalk through Patreon. If there's some people who are like, that's a cool idea, do that, it'd make me a Patreon, then I'll do it. Otherwise, I'll figure out some other way. Daniel Dumoulin, agree with your opinion on the cast's race. I feel like Wheel of Time, a character's nationality is far more important than skin, eye, or hair color. It's more important in reality, man. Many of the nations are already pretty diverse. Yeah, I mean, Raven is black and people believe him to be from West Andor. Wow, that's a detail I didn't remember. Most of the characters in the cast fall from our default white by default category, and then I forgot to hit read more. But I do want to make a point here. We've talked about race in every single episode of WoTTalk. I'm going to kind of put an end to that here. Everyone's no one's bringing up entirely new points here. So I'm gonna go ahead and just say we've covered what needs to be covered. Let's move on. Pretty Alright, which is my favorite username I've read in any comment so far. Hello, Pretty Alright. I love the reference to the late 20th century in Wheel of Time. So this is not a spoiler because it's just something that's like hinted at throughout the series, but there are little hints that this is actually just a broken future version of our world. There's some car hood ornament found, or that has like the same logo as I think it's like, oh god, is it Mercedes-Benz? I'm not sure. There's like a reference to a famous statue as well. I won't get into details on that because that is a spoiler, kind of maybe. But I love that. I didn't pick this up in my first read through. I think it was like my third read through where I was like, oh, that's actually like, oh my god. And then it kind of just clicked. The only thing that this bothers me for is I've someone commented, and actually a couple people have commented, don't call it Randland, call it Earth or Future Earth. And I don't like that for some reason. I can't. Like, my fantasy worlds need an epic name, like Middle Earth. That fits Westeros. It builds the world to me in my head. It feels epic and grand, and I feel like after all this time, just calling it Earth would be a little strange or silly. I don't know. I'll ruminate on that a little bit more. And now we have another comment from Bedtime Bookworm. If you have not checked out her channel, please do. She's wonderful. Perrin and the Wolves is one of my favorite aspects of the series. When I first read the start of the series in high school, I remember thinking that it was such an interesting creative twist on werewolf lore. Don't read this comment beyond wolf lore, because that's a bit of a spoiler. But very, I actually never really put it together that it's a twist on like werewolf lore until I just read this comment. I guess it's pretty obvious now that I'm thinking about it, but yeah, Perrin's a take on a werewolf, I guess. My bad. I should have caught on to that much earlier on. Okay, we are now officially moving into the character hate comments. A lot of these do contain mild to substantial spoilers, so if you are not at least very late in the series, or maybe even done, I would say proceed at your own risk. This is the official entering the danger zone for spoilers right now. And we're going to start it off with Nick Tafosoli, which is an interesting name and a wonderful avatar. Spoilers, it's got to be Cadsuane for me. She takes the Aes Sedai superiority to a new level. She's constantly demanding respect from everyone she comes in contact with, yet gives it to no one. She's incredibly rude, but expects everyone to bow down and obey her every command. She thinks so incredibly highly of herself, but there doesn't seem to be any justification for it. She's just old. That's it. The one good thing she actually does, getting Tam in order to break through Rand's shell, could have been done by just about anyone. The problem that she's there to solve was completely obvious, so everyone that was close to completely obvious to everyone that was close to Rand. I had such a huge grin on my face when Rand finally put her in her place with that line about how he simply wished her dead. Would the pattern make it happen? I'm actually going to disagree here a little bit. I do think Cadsuane has a bit of an ego problem, but saying it's just because she's old is not true. She's one of the most accomplished Aes Sedai in history. There's so much respect due to her because of what she's actually accomplished. We're never explicitly told to the reader, but we're told that she's done incredible things throughout her long lifetime. It's not just that she's old. Older Aes Sedai are not that highly respected. It's that there's this era of, oh my god, this is the woman who did something. We're never told as the reader, because I think Robert Jordan made the specific choice to have her kind of be more of a mysterious person in terms of what she's done. Has it been stealing a ton of men? Has it just been fighting the Shadow in some way? What are her achievements? It's left for us to wonder at, so we don't know if she's an enemy or friend of Rand, but we know those accomplishments are there. And I really don't like this mentality of people who have done incredible things and reached high levels of accomplishment not being given their due respect. I think you should be given a large amount of respect and expect it that way. Like if I was approached by Obama, he just demands respect. It's someone who I should be incredibly respectful towards, and then he doesn't necessarily need to show the same amount of respect back. I mean, if he's a good person, which he seems to be, at least as a human level, then yeah, he'll be like, oh, treat me as a decent person. But there's no, like, you know what I mean? Like if people accomplish a certain amount in their life, they're due respect. That's at least my take on it. I respect everybody, don't get me wrong. There's no one I will ever talk down to. And Cad Swain certainly is guilty of talking down to people at times. But I do also believe if you accomplish a certain amount in your life, you should expect to be respected more. So I don't think I hated her as much as you seem to here, because it's like Michael Jordan walking on the court. You got to bow down a little bit, especially if you're playing ball, which they're all doing when they're trying to work with Rand. It's kind of like her territory. But that's just my quick thought on that. From Brian E.T. Spoilers! For me, the character I hate the most is a toss-up between David Hanlon, a.k.a. Doylan Mallier, and Elida. Elida is easily the most insufferable person in the series. After stealing Swan and Elaine and kidnapping Rand, the Shan Chan couldn't have snatched her up fast enough. Hanlon is the most despicable. The guy stabs a pregnant Elaine, pretty sure he threatens to rape her, steals a fox-head medallion, decapitates Brigitte, and tries to carve Elaine's babies out of her wound. What more can I say? He's awful. Well, he doesn't decapitate Brigitte. Oh, wait. Well, I do agree that both these characters are absolutely terrible, but I'm not sure if your tone here is you hate them because of who they are or how they're written. I think they're written brilliantly, both of them. I think you're probably falling more into that side. I think we're in agreement that they're both just, you're meant to hate them, and there's done a really good job of making you hate them. So I'm very okay with that being what it is. So basically, my end to that comment is I agree. They're awful. And I was surprised more people didn't bring up Hanlon. I hate that dude. Like, every scene he was in, I just got this, like, greasy, I need to shower, feel. If you guys keep asking about casting choices, just for some reason, I don't know why, for casting him, I've always just seen John Travolta. I cannot justify it. I don't know why, but he, to me, is John Travolta. Good luck unseeing that. From Otter Boom. Oh, wait, he does. Yeah, he totally decapitates Brigitte. I don't know why. Yeah, you're right. I'm a fucking idiot. From Otter Boom. WoTTalk. Spoilers. Well, I don't hate Egwene. I do dislike her, as many people do, and I think I know why. Okay, I really like this comment, and I really agree with the kind of theory he puts forth here. I think it's one of the best Wheel of Time theories I've heard. I've heard it before, but it's put very cleanly here. So listen up close. Her friendship with Rand never grows past a certain point. In Book 4, she begins to think of Rand as a foolish and arrogant man-child and never evolves past that. While they finally meet as fully realized Amerlin Seat and Dragon Reborn, Rand comes to her with respect and of an equal, but Egwene does not show him the same courtesy. Here is why that is. Padan Fain. In Book 2, Padan Fain already has the ability to corrupt those he is in contact with, the guards being an example. Later, he corrupts Elaida Sedai and Pedron Nile, the White Cloak commander. Each of these people are turned hostile towards Rand. Egwene visits Padan Fain in prison, often in hopes of reminding him the good in life and turning him back to the light, so it stands to reason that Egwene is corrupted as well. However, those previously mentioned had reasons to be wary of Rand in the first place. He looked like an Aiel, and he was a foreign lord who was friends with a dark friend, a male channeler, and someone claiming to be the Dragon Reborn, respectively. With Egwene, Rand to her was a childhood friend that she once loved romantically and was still friends with. So the corruption made it so that she couldn't trust him to grow up without her leading him by the hand and refusing to see how he grew up and became wise. Sorry for the long post. I know it's hard on your dyslexia. Dude, I need the practice. I appreciate it. And what a wonderful comment. I'm all for it. Totally agree. Of course, this isn't a for sure thing, but I think in terms of Wheel of Time theories, one that I can really get behind, because I've always thought, ever since someone pointed out to me like a year ago, that Elida was corrupted by Padan Fain in some way. And seeing it in these other characters whose contact with him I never thought about so much is brilliant. Good job, Otter Boom. Very cool theory. Good backing up of it with evidence. Ooh, I loathe Gawain's character. You and me both, man. He hates Rand because of a rumor he heard from an unreliable source and then continues hating him even though he knows that Rand didn't do it. I hate that. I hate him too because I liked him up until the Battle of the White Tower, and then he just did a total 180. He's so goddamn annoying. Yeah, there was a little bit of inconsistency there, I feel like, with Gawain. He seems to be very, average and open to information, and then suddenly at the Battle of the White Tower, he does a flip. And I'm not entirely sure why that is. That being said, I do think the continued hate for Rand is at least understandable, while not right. Because if you think someone killed someone close to you, you're going to build up all these other reasons to hate them as well. You know what I mean? Like, if you learn someone did something terrible, you're going to be like, this guy's awful. Oh, he just did that too. I hate that too. I hate this. I hate that. And it's like a tumbling effect. It's part of the human condition. We do this to each other all the time. And, it's to a point where, it's if you suddenly learn, well, he didn't do that first bad thing, then you're gonna be like, well, I still hate him for all these other reasons, even though those reasons might have been kind of just made up in your head. I think a real mature person can usually not get past and do that, but Gawain, after the Battle of the White Tower, is not presented to us as a very mature person. So I think it does fit the secondary version of Gawain that we get. And maybe he wasn't ever mature before that, because we never had a ton of interaction with him until after that point. And in fact, there are a few characters that I think Robert Jordan kind of introduced, and he didn't fully develop their character until it was their time to really grow and shine in the series. And I think the best example of that's Matt Coffin. For the first 2 books, he does not have a character. And then, it's time for Matt to really have a storyline, I'm going to give him a character. Because if you reread book 1 and 2, and once he wakes up in the White Tower, okay, Matt's a good, funny, awesome character. And granted, he's corrupted by the knife for a long stretch of time, but even in book 1, before that's really a problem, it's just he's whiny, and that's about it. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that. And now we have another great long comment here talking about the absolute hate Rakim has for Tuon. I think I messed up his pronunciation of your name again. Too many names for me to remember. Moving on forward. Character that I absolutely hate is Tuon. My reasons are split between her character-specific traits and her culturally inherited traits. Ooh, walking a line of racism. No, I'm kidding. For starters, or not racism, culturism. Culturists? I don't know. You know what I'm talking about. For starters, she obviously checks all the boxes with being a spoiled noble. But she also has a naturally grating personality. I wonder if that personality is more just the Shan-Chan culture coming through, or if it's more just, okay, this is who she is. Because there's other Shan-Chan who seem a lot more chill than Tuon ever is. Culturally, she inherits the reprehensible admiration/desire of upholding the Suldal Damani system. Yeah, that's pretty unforgivable. The worst part about the system was the inconsistencies and purposeful ignorance towards Suldam being able to channel as well. But this topic is merely tangling, so I will move on. I like your dramatic writing style. I will move on. The thing that makes Tuon worse than all the other similarly nauseating characters is her forced association with Matt. While the wheel weaves Rand some pretty unfortunate at least his romantic relationships go quite well, all things considered. That is true. Matt, however, is never given a good romantic relationship, and he, among the three, is arguably the most deserving. Throughout their interactions, it is plain as day that under normal circumstances, what Matt would not fall for Tuon. Just as the wheel forced Rand into his chosen one role, so did the wheel force Matt with Tuon. There are numerous examples of this forcing, such as Matt initiating the wedding. The reason for forcing is obvious. Just so that Rand being the key to saving the world, Matt was the key to gaining the Shan-Chan cooperation. As key, both were used with callous indifference and disregarded. However, where Rand was ultimately able to find peace, Matt is stuck with his plight. Wow, I don't know if I think you're on something very neat there that could certainly be true. And if you're right, the implications are pretty dark, especially for Matt there. I like that quite a bit. That's a good point. The only thing I have to say is I do think there are moments where Matt at least likes Tuon. You know, it's not a oh my god, I hate this person. I think he grows to have they have a cute little crush at best. Some may say that it is not so bad because by the end of the series, Matt has completely fallen for Tuon. Oh damn, he's coming right out what I just said. To which I respond, is it then not so bad for the beings Grandal put under compulsion? Oh, I think that's a stretch. I think you're putting a bit of a stretch there. There's a difference between coming to like someone and being mind-raped into submission. The two plights are not so different, though achieved by different means. Matt is merely a narrower version of Grandal's servants. I could say much more about the disdain for Tuon, but I believe this serves as fair outline. I see what you're saying. You're saying the pattern made him kind of have a crush or fall for Tuon, and I don't think it's fair to make that big a stretch and claim yet. I mean, maybe if the spin-off novels that Robert Jordan planned for Matt ever got made, we might have this more fleshed out after the pattern is done with them. Would they have still felt that way? That would have given us the answer. I think you can interpret this relationship different ways, and you have interpreted it one valid way. I just interpreted a different valid way. I think the pattern put them together, forced them to stay close, but I don't think the pattern would ever be so specific as to make them fall in love, because they didn't really have to. If you remember, Matt says the wedding things, and then Tuon just kind of, out of a moment of admiration for Matt, says them back. I don't think it was ever love that made them do it. It was just kind of liking. I don't think they really love each other that much. Matt, I think maybe likes Tuon more, but yeah, that's an interesting theory. We've gone deep into spoilers here. I hope people took that warning. Proceed at your own risk. To heart. Moving on to Harrison Hogan. Dude, you have a great Stan Lee type name. The double, HH. I've always wanted that. Like Peter Parker, Harrison Hogan. It works. It flows. I have Daniel Greene. That just doesn't flow, You guys, it's a wonderful. I should be Greg Greene. I'd much more likely to turn into a superhero if that were my name. Spoiler warning. Thanks for the spoiler warning. I have trouble deciding on one person. There are so many terrible people in this series to hate. If I had to narrow down the list, it would have to be the three-way between Fael, Elida, and Savannah for all different weight. Have to be a three-way between Thane, Elida, and Savannah, all for different reasons. That is the most dyslexic moment of this video so far, and it was a funny one. I hate and fear Thane and completely agree that his death was mishandled. Oh, we could literally just keep talking about that for the next hour. I'm so let down by that. Throughout the series, Thane would cause my skin to crawl. From the beginning of the Great Hunt in his cell, in Faldara, to his unsatisfying death. I completely agree. This dude, so creepy. Especially, I don't remember the exact book, but the setting where he just clearly is raping a dark friend. That scene was arguably the most nauseating for the whole series, just because, one, it's Thane doing it, and we know what even his touch feels like throughout the book. So that scene. I'm amazed no one's brought that up yet, because that's one of the most gut-punch scenes in the series. To me, he is the embodiment of evil, and one of the best examples that not all evil is associated with the shadow. Yeah, absolutely. To me, he always came across more like a real-life serial killer, someone who's just, almost a John Wayne Gacy, Ted Bundy, that kind of For some reason, I almost just said Ed Helms. I don't. No, Ed Helms is not like that. But yeah, he's real skin quality. I hate Elida because she's so completely corrupted by power and put on fame. I believe that she began truly wanting to help and do the best thing for the world in her own way through manipulation. Her inflated self-importance and her red arrogance caused her to become a puppet of the shadow and allow her desire to be distinguished in history and personally important to lead her to corrupt one of the best tools against the shadow almost beyond repair. Yeah, that's a good contrast you have there of two different kinds of evil. One that is just evil, and the other that is what is intended to be good, being corrupted by human fallings to the point where it becomes almost a tool for evil. There were plenty of cracks in the foundation of the White Tower before she came to power, but the tower was almost destroyed by the selfishness of one woman. I hate Savannah because she's so consumed with gaining power that she's willing to destroy the Aiel and Jiito. I love Aiel and their culture. Me too. They're beautiful. So the preservation of Aiel and the Aiel ways and the forsaken of Jiito simply so Savannah could gain some more power is terrible. I agree, but one thing that's always bothered me was that Savannah did that. It's so just built into every Aiel that this culture is the way to go. It was so jarring to me to have this one Aiel who was like, fuck that, I'm going to do what I want. It was just strange, and I never fully understood. I wish we developed her more. I feel like she would have been a more interesting villain if we got an origin somehow. How did she get to the place where she was suddenly willing to trash all of her culture? Because she's not a dark friend. We know that. It's curious, you know? I wanted that to be explored more. Someone telling me how to pronounce their name right, not going to go over that. My least favorite character of the entire series has to be Cadsuane. My favorite character of the entire series is always Moraine. She's arguably one of my favorite. And I could never stop myself from comparing Cadsuane to Moraine. And this is a good comment because I like the comparison you do here. Moraine was very practical and pragmatic badass. Among other things, she recognized immediately that she needed to take drastic and decisive action against Balal and Lanfear, and she didn't hesitate in either case. Cadsuane, on the other hand, takes Semirog as a prisoner, and that was just about the dumbest thing anyone did in the books. And no, I haven't forgotten about Gawain Turkand. So let me go ahead and add something here. Yeah, Cadsuane has an arrogance issue, and everyone, in my opinion, who takes a Forsaken prisoner, which multiple people do, is an idiot. I've never got that. It's one of those things where it's like, imagine we got like a bomb from an enemy, and you just like, instead of deactivating the bomb or killing it, you just hold it for a while. You're like, I'm gonna learn about this bomb, guys. I'm not gonna destroy it. Let me just fiddle with it. Let me try to figure it out. No. You get rid of the bomb. Like, it's just, there's no question. And that's what these people are, except they're sentient bombs. Semirog came closer than anyone else to winning the whole thing for the Dark One. If not for Rand's unknown connection to Moradin, Semirog would have had Rand under complete control, game, set, and match. And even though Rand, in his desperate desire to save men, used the true power through Moradin to balefire Semirog, the experience still traumatized him to where he almost lost it completely anyway. Yeah, the Cadsuane, that is largely on Cadsuane's shoulders. It's one of the few things that got blamed on her where I was like, yes, absolutely her fault. All because Cadsuane couldn't do what Moraine knew had to be done. Because Cadsuane thought she could just capture the most terrifying of the Forsaken and keep her as a pet. It's only the most glaring example of Cadsuane's chief attribute, unbridled arrogance, and no one ever calls her on it. I dig your writing style here. Yeah, I agree. This is a problem Cadsuane has. She is arrogant. She is due respect, but she is arrogant. That being said, it would be interesting to see if Moraine was still alive. Would she have been the one to take Semirog? Would she have made the same choice? I don't think so. Moraine is much more of a, we need to literally fight the shadow, not do what they're supposed to do. Yeah, good point here. Yeah, all right, moving on. All right, Liam Habib. Hope I said that right. The two who come to mind for me, worst/least favorite character, are Savannah and Elida, primarily due to their subversion of huge subcultures in the series. Specifically, the Aiel are expressed to value GT. Okay, so you're hitting on actually what I hit on. I think your comment made me think of that for the other earlier comments. I skimmed them before I put them in here. Yeah, I think you're right. It's a weird kind of just gross like destruction of culture. In Elida's case, I'm more upset about the waste of potential for an amazing character she could have been. So this was something that you actually started coming at the writing for Elida, if I'm not sure, which I think you are. I think Elida. No, yeah, you're coming at this from a Elida was written well, but it's just wasted potential. You think she could have been done a little better. I disagree. I think she served her exact purpose. I'm not going to read all of it. Sorry, it's just a really long comment, but I think Elida was written wonderfully. You just wish it had been taken a different direction, is what I'm getting here. And I don't completely disagree, but I still like that we had this kind of example of ego leading to evil almost through arrogance. Oh man, there's still so many comments. I pulled a lot. This is going to be the longest WoTTalk by far, guys, because there was a lot of... Apparently people have opinions about characters. From Matt Ardent. I am on my second read-through, currently on book 7. I have trouble with many of the female characters, but the one I really can't stand is Serene. I refuse to call her a falcon out of spite. She seems to deliberately antagonize Perrin to the point of yelling at him for not being mentally abusive. She works through seemingly against Rand at points when she knows Perrin is trying to help him, and her kidnapping leads to the worst storyline in the book, and my loss of interest for Perrin altogether. Okay. Fail is a character that I get why so many people don't like her, because I didn't really like her, and I still don't love her character by any stretch of the imagination. But that being said, the relationship between her and Perrin, if I hadn't seen at least a couple of relationships like that in real life, where people took arguing and fighting as almost a sign of affection because it shows you have so much passion and care for each other, I think I would have a much more negative view of it. But I've seen people like that, and I can't really judge people for how they express love, like to each their own, I guess. So I get it, and I'm kind of just more like annoyed. I don't hate it. I'm just kind of annoyed by it because it reminds me of crap I've dealt with in the real world. Hashtag WoTTalk. Worst character in Wheel of Time. Initially, I'd pick Nynaeve, but she kind of grew on me in the later books. I agree. Nynaeve grew up and had a much more understanding of the situation they were in. She kind of stopped trying to be the protectorate of everyone, and she stopped trying to be the wisdom, which was a key transition for her, which makes me want to say Egwene because of how arrogant, and I know better. We've covered this before for Egwene, and I'm kind of buying into the theory that she was corrupted a little bit. But then there's Padon Fane. Whenever I read about him, I want to skip the chapter. So this isn't about just skin crawliness. You actually just don't like him. And he is the definition of pointless, directionless, overarching villain. Wow, so far at least. He doesn't achieve anything. His presence isn't felt throughout the series unless he's had a chapter dedicated to him. I wish he died in the second book. He is shown to be a real powerhouse, killing Myrddraal and scaring them into submission, raping women, and actually accidentally killing his servants. And those are great moments that show how terrifying and distinguished he can be. But in the end, he confronts Rand, he does something insane, then really doesn't matter, and runs away to plot his next pointless scheme. The only time he does something worth mentioning is stabbing Rand with his dagger. It is kind of like Voldemort. You're repeatedly told how dangerous, powerful, and evil threatening he is, but when the time comes to show it, he is felt flat and undeserved. I kind of have to disagree there. I mean, stabbing the dragon reborn in the stomach isn't just a scheme, and he thought Rand was dead. I mean, he was like, I got this. And you have to remember, I don't think Fane was planning on running into Rand there that day. It just kind of happened, and he just was like, moment. And so I don't think Padon Fane is this giant planning, scheming guy. I don't think he's not like the Joker, where there's this overarching plot on hatching. He's just there to corrupt and spread disease. It's almost like he's more of a monster and just a mindless plague than a man coming across. Spoilers up to Crossroads of Twilight. I would love for people to start putting the book or their spoilers up to so that people can know when to drop out as I'm going through books. I could put them in order, but that's probably too much to ask of y'all. Because that requires a lot of remembering and knowledge. When I started off, I hated Nynaeve. As I read on, I really liked her, but Egwene has the opposite reaction. Yeah, we've talked about this. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and move on because I think we're closing in on like the 40-minute mark here. Two characters I hate because they were such great villains are Savannah and Alviarin. I hate Elaine because she is cocky, doesn't learn from her mistakes, and really doesn't affect Rand or the series in general like Aviendha and Min do. And not that Elaine can control it, but she's also weaker than Egwene and Nynaeve and Aviendha. I'm not sure if Aviendha's stronger than hers. It's really interesting how little we learn about Aviendha's channeling abilities, even besides just like a couple demonstrations. And I don't see why her being weaker in the power would really be worth note, but okay. I'm one of the few people that really likes Elaine. I think I get where she's coming from. Yes, she has some arrogance, but once again, she has also due respect because she's, 20? And she's accomplished so much by a certain time. And she's very rarely wrong, especially later in the series. So I've always kind of seen her as being almost the person who reminds me the most of Rand in certain ways, of his love interest. She's a lot like him in certain aspects. It's like if Rand was female and brought up noble. So she has more confidence than him. She's a little bit... No, Rand is the king of arrogance at times, but she can get more arrogant. But I don't know. I actually really kind of respect and like where she comes from. Chasten Ashton, the worst character in the Wheel of Time, is a tough question. I think there are a few different reasons. Obviously, there's a lot to judge on, but I would have to say that it has toss-up between Egwene and her warrior Gawain. Yeah, I'm gonna get into your Gawain hate here a little bit. Egwene, in my opinion, is just awful. Ladies, don't hate me, but I consider myself a feminist, but Egwene is out of an in-character roller coaster right up until the very end. But I think if you chalk that up to the corruption, it makes a lot more sense. Just this subtle thing where if it's involving Rand, she kind of just loses it. And if you think that, I need to reread everything again just to verify this theory, but I think everything except for things dealing with Rand, she's still fairly in character. This calm, smart person. Poor Gawain doesn't make a single correct choice besides a small truce between himself and Rand at Dumai's Wells. I'm reading this comment terribly. He's a bumbling oaf at times. But yeah, I'm gonna move on because we've talked about Egwene quite a bit. But good comment. Josh Saunders may include spoilers. My biggest hate in the whole series is Nynaeve and her attitudes towards even her friends Elaine and her pretentiousness and all the Aes Sedai, especially Elaida, Ramonda, and Liane. Attitudes of superiority makes me furious, and the way they decide. So I wanted to hit on this because you kind of hit loosely on just Aes Sedai superiority as a whole. And that's, again, something I'm a bit conflicted on because I do think Aes Sedai are just due some form of respect. You know, they're people who have pledged their lives to studying this force that, you know, they're almost scholars in a way. They are important people within the society, and I would never just casually be like, to an Aes Sedai. They're someone whose advice you should heed no matter what their Aja. But I get where the hate comes from, because a lot of them do come across as just blindingly arrogant. I'd love to know what you guys think about, would you, if you were in average day life, just kind of hate an Aes Sedai? If you were in Rand Wheel of Time, would you just kind of be annoyed or bothered by Aes Sedai? All right. And now we are just into the raw spoiler comments. There's only 2 of these, because apparently if I ask you guys to explain why you hate characters, pretty much everyone's going to focus on why they hate characters. But these are just the raw spoilers. I have a personal theory about Padan Fain, that the wheel wove him into the pattern as a sort of backup Dark One in case Rand makes the wrong choice at the end, did somehow end up killing the Dark One. That way, even if Rand killed the Dark One, there would still be some great evil that could fill his mantle and give people free will so the cycle could continue unmolested. As a small extension of this theory, I think Matin Shen and the Black Wind and the Ways is like a third string Dark One in case something happened to Fain. This is the first theory I've seen posed where I'm not saying you're wrong, I'm just saying I disagree with it. Because if you look at what the purpose of the Dark One is at its core, it's not to be this evil entity. It's quite literally the embodiment of free will in a way, if we're talking about the last battle. Because if you kill the Dark One, you kill a person's choice to be evil. If you completely eliminate him, and that's what the Dark One shows Rand. And I don't think Fane in any way, shape, or form comes close to being that. He's just this chaotic mass of disgusting. And I think, if you kill the Dark One, you would even take away Fane's ability to do that. He wouldn't be this thing. He would just be, back to the little peddler who never even went to the shadow. The Dark One is just so far beyond Fane's power level, so far beyond what Fane ever reaches. I don't think he could ever touch what the Dark One is. I think Fane represents the most evil, corrupt, disgusting thing a human can be. And if you compare that to the Dark One, it's leagues below. Because the Dark One, he doesn't have the human fallings of evil. He's not illogical. He's not, cruel or, disgusting in his methods. It's more just about failure, success, evil. I don't know. It's probably, I need to think about this more and maybe make a whole video on it where I have my reasoning more well set out. But this is an interesting theory that I might have to discuss more in a separate video. Thank you so much for leaving that comment, though. I do enjoy it. Good theory post. Last comment we're going to be getting into here from Philip Scursy. Lord of Chaos is my favorite and maybe the consensus favorite book. Yeah, it's pretty much a tie between that and Memory Light, I think, from what I've seen. The one thing I question is why Tam came to save Rand at the legendary... Why Taim, came to save Rand at the legendary Do My Wells battle. The Black Aja side of the tower had Rand within their grasp. Why not avoid the battle or even help the tower emissary to the tower so that the Black Aja could whisk? And then it just ended. There's no read more. It just ended. So the reason I think so is Taim wasn't in the shadow yet. I think that was a later evolution for him, something that he may have been coming close at this point. But I don't think when we first met Taim, he was there yet. I think he met Rand, slowly began to resent Rand, and then went to the shadow. And I don't think at this point he had gone. I think he was close, but I don't think he was there yet. And the reasoning for this is just beyond the, Taim he's a matter. I feel bad for Taim because he was dealt arguably one of the worst hands in any one of the Wheel of Time. He believed he was the Dragon Reborn. He wanted to do that. He wanted to fight the Shadow. He did the best he could to become that. And then he had all that swiftly stripped from him by Rand. And then he had to come to terms with the fact that Rand was really the chosen one, which I can't imagine is an easy thing to do. And then he has to go work for Rand just for any hope that he can live, because people are still going to be hunting him across the world trying to kill him. So he seeks refuge with the man who stripped him accidentally from all of his power. And then he has to help train, essentially, children in his eyes to even be semi-competent in doing, just basic things with the one power. Imagine that transition as a person. You think you're going to be this huge world-shaping guy, and then you essentially are teaching, the power equivalent of elementary school. That's not easy, and I don't fault him for starting to become resentful. And then he falls into more of an loathing, angry. He just, he goes the path of the shadow from there. But up until that point, Taim had a lot of sympathy from me. I don't think until he decided to go to the shadow, he was a bad guy. And you can see his evolution and fall happen through the eyes of Logain. There we go, guys. That was the last comment. So this will be the end of WoTTalk episode 4. It's probably my favorite episode I've done so far. I like this one a lot. And I have a specific question for you guys. This one, try to keep it as spoiler-free as possible. I want this to be something that we can actually include in the spoiler-free section for next week. So if it contains spoilers, your comment won't be included, unfortunately. But I want you to just say, who is your favorite side character? Who is the most underappreciated, awesome side character in your opinion? Someone who deserves a lot more love, and give reasons why without getting, too spoilery here. For me, it's Uno. I'm a big fan of Uno. I think he's great. But love y'all. I'll talk to you next week on WoTTalk episode 5, the episode where we focus on the underrated characters. Have a good one, y'all. Peace.